You know, sometimes your business feels complicated because it is. Other times it feels complicated because the wrong things are getting too much attention. Either way, the patterns become easier to see once you know what you're looking for. Hi, Lens Legends. Welcome to another episode of the Portrait Profit Show, where we focus on the business side of photography. I'm your host, Jim Landers, your guide on the business side. The Portrait Profit Show is brought to you by Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School. For Digital Pro Lab, Amanda and her amazing, wonderful team are going to make you look like a hero because it's just who they are. Amanda hires fantastic people. And because of that, they love what they do. And just the default is making you look amazing because their photographs look amazing. Their customer service looks amazing, feels amazing. If you haven't tried digitalprolab.com, Digital Pro Lab yet, go to digitalprolab.com so you can see the difference. I'll put that on the screen here real quick. Digitalprolab.com. Take a screenshot if you need to. Digitalprolab.com. The show is also sponsored by Landers Photography School. It's my company. I teach both the photography side and the business side, and I encourage you to take advantage of something I give away for free. It's a free 15-minute session, private session with me via Zoom. You could do it via phone call as well, but I prefer Zoom. And I'll give you the address. There is the address right there. You can see it says calendly.com/photo school/15MIN. That takes you directly to my calendar so that you can find a time that works. And then we talk about you, your situation, your goals, and hopefully find some direction that maybe you've been missing. I also encourage you to go to the comments section and add in any questions or comments that you have throughout this lesson today. I also want you to enter in hashtag live. Hashtag live. That lets me know that you're watching today on either Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. We're simulcast to several different places. And for those of you who are watching the replay, please enter in hashtag replay. I'd sure appreciate it if you hit the share button. Also, let other people know that the Portrait Profit Show exists. That's how people find out about it, is by you sharing it. That's how you found out about it. Someone told you. So return that favor. Let other people know about the Portrait Profits Show. There are 5 principles every photographer should understand because they help explain why the business can feel so difficult to figure out. These ideas are not brand new, and implementing just one won't magically change everything. The value is in seeing how they work together and how often they show up in day-to-day decisions of your business. These principles come from psychology, business, time management, decision making, and human behavior. But once you use them in your business, they help explain why confidence changes as we grow, why tasks take longer than they should, why some actions create better results than others, why people frustrate us, and why the business itself needs to be shaped around the life you want. Now, as you hear each principle, don't just listen for the definitions. Listen for where they are already showing up in your own business. Look for the tasks that are stretching too thin or too long. The advice that sounds confident but lacks depth. Listen for the activities that feel productive but produce very little. Listen for the moments where better communication could reduce frustration and the decisions that should be measured against the life we want to build. This is where this That is where this becomes useful. These 5 principles are not just ideas to remember, they are lenses that you can use to make better decisions, to protect your time, focus your effort, preserve your creative energy tank, and shape your business that supports your ideal life. Chapter 1. The first principle is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, in case I didn't tell you already, you've probably heard each one of these principles I'm going to share with you today, but you might not have heard them in the context of your photography business. So the first principle is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Before we use it to think about the people we cross paths with, let's start where we should, with ourselves. Or as Michael Jackson put it, we start with the man in the mirror. I'm not going to go on with that. You know the rest of the lyrics. This principle is a useful way to analyze your own behavior, especially when we are learning something difficult. It describes what can happen when limited knowledge creates more confidence than this situation actually supports. The interesting part of this does not only apply to beginners. It can show up at different stages of development because every new level of understanding reveals something that maybe we just didn't see before. The longer a photographer studies both the art and the business sides of photography, the more clearly they see what they didn't know as much as they previously thought they did. I've been studying photography for, well, let's just say decades. Within 10 years as a full-time professional, I was pretty impressed with myself and my knowledge. At the time, I believed I had a strong handle on what I was doing. And to be fair, I did know a lot more than when I started. But in hindsight, I was still only scratching the surface. Now, after all these years, I can see more clearly how much more there is that I still don't know even now. You might think that is discouraging, but that's not even slightly. In many ways, it's reassuring. It means that there's always something else to learn in photography. It means that humility is not a beginner's lesson. It's a professional habit. As photographers begin learning, the earliest stage often feels uncertain. Lighting, posing, camera settings, client direction, workflow, business decisions, all of that can feel like separate puzzles at the same time. That lack of confidence is normal because the photographer is aware of how much of what they are attempting to do feels unfamiliar. It doesn't feel wrong, it just feels unfamiliar. Then some things begin to work. Lighting patterns start to become familiar. Posing feels less awkward. A few sessions go well, and the feedback from clients, friends, or family, well, that feels encouraging. Progress becomes visible. And because the progress is real, confidence begins to grow, as it should. That's the point where the Dunning-Kruger effect can begin to show up in your life, though. A photographer knows far more than they did when they began, at this point, at the stage that I'm describing. And that progress should be recognized. The problem is that progress sometimes feels like perspective. They are improving, but they may still have a limited view of what photography itself and the business actually require. As the photographer continues working, the frame of reference expands. Lighting becomes more than exposure. It becomes direction control, consistency, and eventually intention. Posing becomes more than where the hands go or how someone stands. It becomes communication, body language, confidence, connection. The photographer begins to notice details that were invisible before. And that new awareness can create a strange kind of, discomfort. That discomfort is the beginning of better judgment. This is where humility becomes useful. I'm not talking about the kind of humility that makes a photographer shrink back, apologize, or second guess every decision. I'm talking about the kind of humility that allows a person to keep learning with honesty. That kind of humility creates a room. Well, it creates room to process, to look clearly at the images, look clearly at the process, the pricing, the marketing, and the client experience. It allows the photographer to ask better questions. What's working? What's unclear? What am I assuming? What are my ideal clients responding to? Where am I confusing compliments with results? The same principle applies to the business side. A photographer may believe their marketing is working because people compliment their work, but compliments and inquiries are, well, different things. They may believe that their pricing is clear because it makes sense to them, or because it resembles another photographer's pricing, while prospects are still confused. They may believe their client experience is strong because, well, no one's complained, while clients may simply be moving on without even saying anything. So therefore, nothing would have caused you to know. That is why this first part has to start with us. It's easy to see overconfidence in someone else. That's easy. It's much harder to recognize it in ourselves, especially when we're working hard, making progress, and receiving positive feedback. But once we're willing to examine our own behavior, we become better prepared to recognize the same pattern in the people around us. I mean, we all cross paths with people who speak with great certainty about things they don't understand. Sometimes it's another photographer giving business advice after one strong marketing effort. Sometimes it's a prospect or a client who believes the session should be simple because they only see the final image, not the planning, lighting, posing, editing, preparation, and the judgment that's behind it. Sometimes it's a random person online giving confident marketing advice. It sounds like, it sounds polished, but has very little practical experience behind it. Certainty sounds convincing. That is why this principle matters. A person can speak with confidence and still be missing the larger picture. I have come across people with degrees in whatever it is, who people without degrees are much smarter than. A degree does not make you better than everyone else. It may make you better in some areas, but it can give you overconfidence to think that you're better. They may know one piece of the puzzle and mistake what they do know for the whole thing. They may have one success that turned into a universal rule. They may repeat advice they heard from someone else without understanding the conditions that actually made it work. When someone gives advice, listen for depth. Can they explain why it works? I mean, if you ask a question and they fall apart, they can't answer, they get frustrated or flustered, Dunning-Kruger. Can they explain it when it doesn't work? Can they describe the conditions, the trade-offs, the consequences? Or are they simply speaking with confidence because they've not yet encountered the complexity? That distinction matters. Confidence and understanding are not the same thing. The more a photographer understands, the more they can see. This is the true value of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It is not an insult at any stage of development. It's not a reason to distrust someone who comes across as confident. It is a reminder that confidence becomes more useful when it's supported by awareness. An increasing confidence gets a photographer moving. When you feel confident, you get moving. You do. It's true. So it's a good thing. But it's humility that keeps them improving, keeps you improving. Discernment helps You evaluate the advice, opinions, and criticism that you're receiving from others. And over time, that shift from certainty to awareness becomes one of the signs that a photographer is building something more stable than talent alone. You know, about the next principle. The second principle is Parkinson's law. Now, I just noticed that I forgot to put up the image that I had for the first one. There it is. Now I'm going to do the second one. So the second principle is Parkinson's law. This principle says that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Have you heard this one? In other words, when we give a task more time than it needs, the task often grows to fit the space we allowed it to occupy. Hmm. This shows up constantly because so much of what we do has flexible edges. Editing can take 2 hours. It could also take 2 days. It could take 2 weeks or more. A social media post can take 15 minutes or turn into an entire afternoon of overthinking. Without a clear boundary, many useful tasks become larger than they need to be. This does not imply that the work is unimportant. It means that without structure, important work can become inefficient work. Photographers are especially vulnerable to this because many of us care deeply about the details. We notice things others are going to miss. They're not going to see. You could spend an hour on something that pretty much no one else is going to notice. You're adjusting, you're refining, you're improving. I mean, that attention to detail can be part of what makes our work strong. But the same quality that helps us create better images can also keep us polishing something long after meaningful improvement has already happened. I mean, you've probably heard of the law of diminishing returns. At some point, the refinements just become delay. So that is where Parkinson's law becomes useful. It gives us a way to look at our time more honestly. If a task routinely takes all day, one of the first questions to ask is whether the task truly requires all day or whether it's simply been given all day. A photographer might say, I spent the whole day editing, and that may be true. But the better question is whether the whole day was needed. Now, on the surface, before they've had a chance to analyze it, they're going to say, of course it was. It took me that long. I was honestly working hard to make it happen. Yes. But were decisions made efficiently? Or was the photographer circling the same set of images over and over? Were they improving the final result, or were they trying to reduce the discomfort of calling the work finished? I mean, it happens with marketing. The photographer may spend hours thinking about what to post, which image to use, what words to write, what time to publish, and then whether that post is good enough to post at all. By the end of that process, the post may not be much better than it would have been after a 30-minute effort that was focused. That extra time may have created hesitation instead of improvement. When tasks stretch too far, they consume the time that should have been used for other important parts of the business. You know this. Editing expands, marketing disappears. Website adjustments expand and client follow up disappears. Planning expands and action disappears. Yeah, you're staying busy, but the business does not necessarily move forward because of all that busy work. This is one reason deadlines are so helpful. A deadline is not only a finish line, it's a decision-making tool. It forces you to determine what level of work is appropriate for the purpose of the task. A client order deserves careful attention. A social media caption does not need to be treated like a book chapter. A price list needs to be clear and usable, but it does not need to be redesigned every time you feel uncertain. A marketing email needs to communicate clearly enough to be sent, not polished endlessly in an attempt to avoid being perceived as making a mistake. Parkinson's law reminds us that time boundaries create focus. When we decide how long a task deserves before we begin, we reduce the chance of letting emotion make that decision for us. We also create a clear distinction between work that needs excellence and work that simply needs completion. Yeah, that distinction's important. Not every task deserves the same level of energy. Some work should be polished. Some work should be more practical. You choose the P. Polished, practical. Some work should be completed quickly so the business can keep moving. You've got to have momentum. I'm not talking about rushing. It's about matching the amount of time to the value of that task. A photographer who gives every task unlimited time eventually has no time left for the work that matters most. But a photographer who creates boundaries can give better attention to the right things. They can decide when editing is finished, when the post is ready, when the email should be sent, and when the offer is clear enough to send out. And that kind of time discipline creates breathing room. It helps photographers stop confusing effort with progress. It also makes the business feel less chaotic because the day is no longer being controlled by whichever task expands the most. Parkinson's law is saying that care needs structure. Yes, you care. That's why you do what you do. But that needs structure because without structure, care can become overwork, hesitation, delay, a loss of momentum. With structure, care becomes more focused, more useful, more sustainable. You know that the goal is not to fill the day with work. So purposefully use your valuable time to move the business in the direction it needs to go. You guys resonating with this? You hearing it? Does it make sense? Have you heard some of these before? We've done 2 of the 5. Let's move on. By the way, if you'd like today's handout, just send me an email, jim@portraitprofits.com, jim@portraitprofits.com, and I'll send you the handout for today's lesson. Chapter 3. The Pareto Principle, the third principle that I'm sharing with you today, often called the 80-20 rule. It suggests that a large percentage of results often comes from a much smaller percentage of actions. In simple terms, not everything you're doing right now contributes equally to the outcome that you want. Running a business can create the feeling that everything you're doing matters. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. The website matters. Social media matters. Email matters. Referrals matter. Networking matters. Editing matters. Client communication matters. Pricing matters. Follow-up matters. The challenge is that when everything feels equally important, you end up spreading attention across too many distractions at once. The Pareto Principle gives us a better question to ask. Instead of asking, what else should I be doing? We can ask, which actions are producing the results I want? That question changes the way you look at your business. I forgot to put this up. You may discover that most inquiries come from a small number of referral sources. You may realize that one type of session produces a large share of your profit. You may find that a small group of past clients creates the most amount of repeat business or word of mouth referrals. You may recognize that a few clear messages connect with ideal clients far better than the many posts you've been creating just to stay active. It means the work that you do does not carry equal weight. That distinction matters because it is easy to become loyal to activity. Activity feels responsible. It does. It feels like effort because it is. It gives the day structure. But would you rather be busy or effective? You can post often and still attract very few qualified prospects. You can spend hours adjusting a website and still leave visitors unclear about what to do next. You can create new offers, new discounts, new promotions while ignoring the few relationships that have already proven that they can lead to better clients and more clients. Because the Pareto Principle invites you to look for the meaningful few. The Pareto Principle invites you to look for the meaningful few. Which relationships consistently produce strong referrals? What marketing message causes people to ask better questions? Which session type leads to the strongest sales? The best client fit? The most satisfying work for you? Which part of the client experience causes people to talk about you later? Which actions help move the business towards the life you actually want? Those are the questions you should be asking. This is where focus becomes discipline. It's not only about choosing what to do, it's also about choosing what deserves less of your attention. It's normal for that to feel uncomfortable because you're surrounded by ideas and many of them are interesting. Therefore, you want to do them. They're going to take your time. Besides, there's someone always promoting a new platform, a new trend, a new editing style, a new marketing tactic, a new way of packaging sessions. There's always new stuff coming up. It's exciting. It's interesting. Some of those ideas may be really good. But just because you perceive something as good in no way implies that it's right. A good idea can be the wrong idea for your business that you're trying to build. So using the Pareto principle helps you separate movement from distraction. If a small number of actions are producing the most meaningful results, then those actions deserve to be protected, strengthened, repeated. Identify what's already working and build on that with intention. Put more attention where your attention is already proving useful. When you understand this principle, you begin to manage the business differently. You start looking for patterns instead of reacting to pressure. You evaluate where inquiries come from, which clients are the best fit, which offers are most profitable, which activities create momentum. Over time, you become less impressed by how much you're doing and more interested in what your actions are actually producing. That shift is important because a sustainable photography business does not require you to do everything. It requires you to do the right things consistently enough for those things to matter. This principle is a reminder that focus is not an accident. Focus is chosen. When you identify the small number of actions that create the strongest results, you gain the ability to place your time, energy, and attention where it can do the most good. Now we're going to get to one that's got a slightly different name, Hanlon's razor. The fourth principle of 5 is Hanlon's razor. It says, never attribute to malice what can be adequately explained by stupidity. Let me use gentler language because some people get offended by that word, stupidity. I don't know why we allow words to offend us. I've come across people who are offended by the word ignorant. I think it's because they think it means stupid. We need the word ignorant. It's just a description of things we don't know yet. This isn't a negative. In fact, it's a positive. Once we are becoming aware of things we don't know yet, this causes us to have at least the potential to become better. So let me give you that gentler language. Do not assume someone is trying to harm you when the situation can be explained by carelessness, confusion, distraction, a lack of understanding. This principle matters in a photography business because so much of the work involves people, interactions with people. You are communicating with prospects, clients, vendors, venues, your lab, Digital Pro Lab, organizations, your photography coach, and other photographers. Anytime people are involved, there will be missed messages, unclear expectations, late replies, forgotten details, delayed decisions, and moments when someone says or does something that feels frustrating to you. It's easy to take those moments personally. A prospect asks for pricing and then disappears. A client delays making a decision. Someone cancels a session after you've already spent time preparing, maybe money. A parent does not read the instructions you sent. A business client asks for something simple without understanding the planning, the licensing, the usage, and production behind the request. None of that feels good, especially when you care deeply about what you're doing, what you do. Hanlon's razor suggests that you pause before assigning intent. Don't automatically assume something, because maybe they are not disrespecting your time. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they are overwhelmed. You don't know what's going on in their life. I mean, maybe they skimmed the message while standing in line at a grocery store and never came back to it. Maybe they're interested, but they're confused. They don't even know what question to ask. Maybe they want to respond. They just don't know what to ask next. Maybe they have no idea what goes into professional photography. Hey, you're the pro here. Don't assume they know anything. Now, I'm not excusing poor behavior because that exists as well. I am suggesting that you respond from sound judgment rather than emotional reaction. You know what? Speaking of poor behavior, it's also important to understand the difference between assuming good intent and ignoring patterns. If someone repeatedly misses appointments, well, if someone repeatedly misses appointments, they delay payment, they disregard your boundaries, or they treat your work casually, these things tell you something important. Hanlon's razor is not asking you to become naive. It's asking you to avoid turning every frustration into a personal insult before you have enough information. That distinction protects your relationships, and it protects something that I think you need to be paying a lot of attention to, and that's your creative energy tank. When you assume malice too quickly, your response usually becomes sharper than the situation requires. You might write an email with an unnecessary edge, but you only discover that later. You may figuratively close a door that could have and should have stayed open. You may carry frustration into the next conversation that you have. You're talking to someone now, the next phone call, the next person you talk to could be a spouse, it could be a child. You carry that to the next conversation. You may create tension where a little clarity would have solved the problem. That is where this principle becomes practical. Instead of asking, why are people being difficult? You can ask, where could my communication be clearer? Instead of assuming someone does not value your work, you can ask, have I helped them understand the value? Instead of getting frustrated that they didn't follow your directions, you can ask, were the directions simple, timely, and easy to act on? This does not place all responsibility on you, but you can't fix a problem without taking ownership of that problem. People do still make their own decisions, and some people will simply not be a good fit for you. But as the professional, you have the opportunity to create systems that reduce friction. Clear emails, clear pricing, clear expectations, clear timelines, clear boundaries, clear next steps. All these things prevent many problems before they could even have the opportunity to appear. Hanlon's razor also helps when receiving advice or criticism. Someone may say something careless about your work, your pricing, your process, your business model. Before turning that into an emotional energy, before turning that into an emotional injury, it helps to consider whether the person actually understands what you are building. They may be speaking from a limited experience. They may be speaking from personal preference, or if it's another photographer, from an entirely different business model. Their words may not deserve the weight that you may be giving them. This is especially important online, where confident opinions are easy to find and context often missing. A comment can sound personal when it was simply thoughtless. A critique can feel authoritative when it's just based on a different goal than yours. A suggestion can sound helpful while being completely misaligned with the business that you are trying to build. The value of Hanlon's razor is that it gives you a pause. It allows you to protect your calm, preserve your professionalism, and respond with clarity. No, you still enforce boundaries. You still say no. You still correct misunderstandings. You still decide that maybe someone's just not the right client for you. The difference is that you make those decisions from a calmer and more informed place. Your ability to stay calm, clarify expectations, and avoid unnecessary offense helps protect the client experience and your own emotional energy. So it's Hanlon's razor that reminds us that most frustrating moments are better handled with clarity before judgment. When you slow down long enough to consider confusion, distraction, or misunderstanding, you are more likely to respond in a way that protects both your standards and your relationships. If you've heard something that you like, will you press that like button or love button? I've got just one more principle to share with you. And if you've been watching the Portrait Profit show, know this one, but I've never called it by this name before. It's the Landers principle. The uh-oh. That sometimes means my power's about to go off. I hope it doesn't mean that this time. The fifth principle is the Landers principle. The business, well, your business specifically, is a tool that helps you build your ideal life. Your business is a tool that helps you build your ideal life. Define the life you want. Shape the business to support it. Start with the destination. This principle belongs at the end because the first four principles that I shared with you help you make better decisions. But the Landers principle helps us understand what those decisions are for. Humility keeps you learning. Time discipline protects your attention. Focus helps you choose the actions that matter most. Perspective helps you work with people more calmly and professionally. But all of that still needs a destination. Otherwise, you can become it better just generally running a business that still doesn't support the life you want. That's why defining your ideal life must come first. Before deciding what to offer, what to charge, how often to work, which clients to serve, or which opportunities to accept, you need to know what you're trying to build. Your business is not separate from your life. It affects your schedule, your income, your energy, your relationships, your creativity, your ability to enjoy the work that you love. A lot of business decisions look good when they are viewed independently. A weekend grouping of mini sessions can look good. A discount request can look good. A new personal project can look good. A referral opportunity can look good. A new platform, a new promotion, a new offer, or a new pricing model. All of these can look good, or at least reasonable. The problem is that good choices are not necessarily the right choices for the destination that you've chosen. That's where many people get pulled in directions that they never intended to go. Oh, they're working hard. They are staying active. They improve their images. They respond to inquiries. They keep adjusting the business. From the outside, it may look like progress. From the inside, it feels like progress. But man, once you step back, the question becomes clearer. Is this business helping you build the life you actually want? The Landers principle keeps you aligned to your destination. If you want more time with family, that affects what you offer and when you offer it. If you want fewer clients with higher sales, that affects pricing, marketing, product design, the amount of guidance clients need from you. If you want a high volume seasonal model that requires a different workflow, different expectations, different systems. If you want a boutique business, that requires a different level of planning, service, communication, follow through. None of those paths is better than the others. They're all viable. The right path is the one that supports the life you are intentionally trying to build. I mean, even when you get on the road, you know this. When you get on the road and start heading in a direction, it's because you know where you're going. If you're in San Antonio, Texas, and you decide you want to go to Dallas, Texas, then you know to get on I-35 or 281. You don't get on I-10. You don't even get on 35 going south. It's the right road, just the wrong direction. But they're all good roads. It doesn't matter which road you get on. Chances are you're going to get on a good one. But does it take you where you want to go? This is why copying other businesses can be misleading. You may see someone else offering mini sessions, selling digital files, building a studio, photographing events, running ads, creating albums, or posting constantly. Those choices may be working beautifully for them. They probably are good ideas, but good ideas still need to be measured against your destination. A road can be perfectly good and not take you where you want to go. You guys hearing this? Does that sound good? Does it sound reasonable? Do you get it? Click that like button. Hit the yeah. Go to comments and enter yes. If you haven't already, enter in hashtag live. Once you define your ideal life, business decisions become easier to evaluate. You ask better questions. Does this offer support the schedule I want? Does this pricing support the income I need? Does this client process support the level of service that I want to provide? Does this marketing put me in the path of people who value what I create? Does this opportunity move me toward the life I'm building, or is it pulling me away from it? These questions help you separate what is merely good from what is right for the destination you've chosen. That distinction matters because there will always be more good things than you can do with the time you have, the energy you have, the attention you have. You shape the business. You define what success means to you. You design the offers, pricing, marketing, and systems that support the life you want, not simply absorb whatever time and energy that you make available to them. So before you ask, what should you charge? What should you offer? What kinds of sessions should you promote? What marketing tactics should you be using or trying? Start with the larger question. What life am I trying to build toward? Once that becomes clearer, the business decisions become clearer too. You begin to see which opportunities support the destination and which ones take you away from it. You begin to understand which good ideas belong in your business and which good ideas belong somewhere else. In my opinion, good things are equivalent to bad things, unless you planned them, because it is the right things that will take you where you want to go. Good things are good. They just aren't good for you unless you planned them along with the right things. That's the Landers Principle. Your business is a tool that helps you build your ideal life. Define the life you want. Shape the business to support it. But you start with the destination. You've just heard 5 principles. 5 different angles for looking at the business you're building. The Dunning-Kruger Effect reminds us to keep learning with humility and to listen for depth when advice is offered. Parkinson's law reminds us to give our time structure because care without boundaries, that just becomes delay. The Pareto Principle reminds us to look for the meaningful few, the actions, relationships, offers, and messages that are already producing results worth strengthening. Hanlon's razor reminds us to slow down before assigning intent, because confusion, distraction, and unclear communication explain many frustrations before malice ever enters the conversation. And the Landers Principle brings all of it back to your destination. Your business is a tool that helps you build your ideal life. Start there. That means the goal is not simply to stay busy or copy what seems to be working for other photographers. The goal is to define the life you want, then shape the business to support it. When you use these principles together, they become more than interesting ideas. They become a way to evaluate decisions. Am I learning with humility? Am I protecting my time? Am I focusing on the actions that matter most? Am I responding to people with perspective? Am I building a business that supports the life I want? Those questions can help you separate movement from progress and progress from direction. And once the destination becomes clearer, the choices in front of you become clearer too. Hope you liked this. As you know, you get the Portrait Profit Show every Monday. So I want to let you know about the upcoming shows. In 1 week from today, we'll be in the month of May already. And so I want to share with you what we're going to be doing throughout the month of May. Let me put up the first one. There it is. 12 business truths. A photography business grows based on the decisions you make and the standards you set. These 12 business truths will help you attract the right clients and build a business that supports your life. That's 1 week from today. Put it on your calendar. 1 week after that, May 11th, I'm doing an interview. Now, this one is not 100%, but put it on your calendar anyway. Every Monday at noon is when we do the Portrait Profit Show, except for the second Monday of each month, which for the month of May is May 11th. We move it to 6:30 in the evening. And I do that because I usually bring someone on. It could be a panel. It could be an individual that I'm interviewing. In this instance, it's an interview with Ayush Arora. And it's called After the Session, Why Your Workflow Needs to Change. After the session is over, it feels like the hard part is done until you sit down at the computer. What follows is hours of reviewing, comparing, second guessing, and deciding which images move forward and which do not. It's time consuming. It can feel heavy. It slows down everything else in your business. In this episode, your post-production process will become efficient. And that is because Ayush Arora, the owner of Filter Pixel, is going to help you see this much more clearly. That's in 2 weeks from today on May 11th. And I forgot to click that button. All right, that was May 11th. On May 18th, this is Make the Best Choice Obvious. If there's even a moment in your process, the client sales process, when your clients don't know what to do next, that's not a client problem. That's on you. This episode shows you how to structure your offers so the best choice, the one you want them to choose, becomes obvious. Now, why would you want them to have a best choice? Wouldn't you want them to choose anything that you offer? Except you have an average sale that you want to reach. You want to make everything about that option that causes you to reach your average sale to be very attractive. We'll talk about how to make that happen, how to increase the potential to reach your average sale, your ideal average sale. And to round out the month of May, this one is called full service photography. Now, I want you to imagine, you've probably heard me give this analogy before, but I want you to imagine a roofer handing you a bag of nails and then pointing at a stack of shingles and calling the job complete. Well, that's what happens every time a client is left to figure out what to do with their images. In this episode, I will show you how to guide decisions so your work ends in something finished, not something forgotten. Add these free lessons to your calendar now before you forget. You're busy. You've got a million things going on in your life. Yay, that's great. But it's what causes you to forget things that you might want to do. The Portrait Profit shows every single Monday. Put it on your calendar now, and that way you'll never forget. Lens Legends, your business has the ability to help you build the life you want, but only when you define the destination and shape the business to support it. So keep learning with humility. Protect your time. Focus on what's working. Give people the benefit of the doubt of clarity. And make decisions that move you toward the life you're building. Thank you, Lens Legends, for your time and attention here today. And thank you for the hard work you put into building a photography business that matters. For Landers Photography School for Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, I'm Jim Landers, and this is the Portrait Profit Show. I look forward to watching you grow. You are amazing, and I appreciate you. Bye for now.